because this might be the inner chronicle of what we are. And we have to articulate ourselves, otherwise we would be cows in a field.
Welcome to Cows in the Field. This is a movie podcast where we talk about philosophical themes in popular film. My name is Justin.
I'm Laura.
So today we want to grab your... Sorry, how do I want to say this?
I don't know where you're going.
All right, so pick up your ice picks because today we're going into Basic Instinct. And we're joined today by a part-time film critic and full-time lawyer. He writes for Neotext and Massive Cinema, and he's a host of Movie Talk Podcast. Welcome, Matt Belenky.
Hey guys, thanks a lot for having me. I'm really excited to dig into this film.
Yeah, thanks for suggesting it. So, you know, we have to confess at the outset that we had never seen Basic Instinct. I mean, Verhoven is someone who I have mixed feelings about, but I have generally liked his films. And I don't know, no idea why we had never seen it. So thank you for suggesting it. We watched it for the first time a few nights ago. But tell us, what brings you back to this film? Like, why is it an important film for you?
I think it's an important film because, first of all, it's my favorite genre. It's a neo-noir, I'd say. So it's a mix of the old 50s, 60s type film, the Orson Welles, Alfred Hitchcock, Billy Wilder, Double Indemnity, meets this sort of new, I think, modern age sensibility. And I think the way Verhoven tweaks with the erotic thriller genre and kind of mixes in the suspense, the mystery, is totally different than the films that try to emulate Fatal Attraction and the sort of erotic thriller film that was prevalent at the time. And what keeps me coming back, I think in specific, is Catherine Trammell. It's Sharon Stone. It's the birth of a movie star before your eyes. And it's sort of the confluence between Stone, Douglas, Michael Douglas, and the director, Paul Verhoven. And you can even throw Joe Esterhaus. And it's all these sort of forces meeting together and creating a film that's a who, what, where, done it. And because of that, it keeps you drawing back into it. You're sort of unwinding the mystery just as Detective Nick Curran, and that gets intoxicating. Yeah. And I love it.
Yeah, I have to confess that I am very bad with the noir genre. And we were watching The Big Sleep, I don't know, a few months ago, and how did it go, Laura? At one point, they were like, there's some character they're looking for.
Yeah, what was his name? I wish I could remember the name of the character. You like completely lost track, and they keep talking about him, and you're like, who is this guy? I'm like, this is the whole inciting incident of the film. Like, what? You couldn't track like a single thing because you're not good with names.
I'm not good with names. It's really that's one of the problems I have with noir in general. Is like, I don't know who is who. I mean, there's a lot of dudes in this movie, like minor character dudes.
A lot of dudes,
and I could not keep track of them.
Were you keeping track of the women?
There were two.
There are three. There's Roxy.
Oh, I guess Roxy.
And Roxy kind of looks just like Catherine Trammell. But I think you managed to keep those two apart. You figured it out.
I think, yeah. I mean, yeah.
But every time we watch a noir, we have to like pause and I have to explain to Justin what's going on.
I'm pulling up the Wikipedia right now. So I'm ready to go. But there's a lot going on in this
There's
movie.
not going to be a plot quiz, Justin.
I mean, I think you're totally right, though, Matt, that it's a neo-noir. It has all these Hitchcockian elements, too, that I think are really cool. And then it's like the most intense and insane erotic thriller in that it goes so hard on the erotic thriller that I guess that it kind of almost killed the genre in a way because there wasn't really anywhere else to go. So let's start with the plot. And here we're obviously going to spoil the movie. So if you have not seen the movie, just pause and come back. So this is a plot about a psychopath who goes on basically a murderous rampage, but she's also, I don't know, she's somewhat sympathetic. I don't know, she's like has her own weird surrogate family that she's created, and she's constantly defying the men around her who are trying to put her in a box that she refuses to be stuck in. So who is Catherine Trammell? That's my question to start out.
Yeah, I mean, Catherine Trammell is a mystery, and she's kind of unique in that she's a multimillionaire, right? She's this successful author who happens to write these kind of supermarket thrillers that nowadays maybe Gillian Flynn of Gone Girl fame is...
Yeah,
absolutely
could be guilty of doing. And she's someone who's very confident, and she loves toying and controlling the men in her life, especially these sort of horny, coked up men, such as Michael Douglas. And there's a certain energy to this film where, in prior maybe erotic thrillers, it's a woman from hell or a babysitter from hell, who you get the sense has come from a troubled past, and they're kind of thrown into a different situation, and they become sort of unleashed. But you never really learn too much about Catherine Trammell's past, other than some confusing plot points, such as the fact that maybe she killed, or she likely killed her parents on a boat. And there's a certain mystery, I think, with her character. And I don't know. I mean, it's fascinating to kind of, we're learning just as Nick Curran, I think, is learning about the character. And we're sort of putting together these clues piecemeal. But we're confident, and I think the opening scene kind of tells us so, that Trammell is likely the killer. And as much ambiguity as the film tries to throw at us throughout, by way of Jean Triplehorn's character, we're pretty confident that Trammell is the guilty party and is the murderer, and yet we can't wait for the next scene. So this sort of alluring nature of it is pretty amazing.
I mean, I think that's one of the most wild successes of the film, is that it announces who the killer is. And so these guys are trying to figure out who the killer is the whole time. We know, and yet it's still absolutely compelling, partly because we want to know why. We want to understand what is going on with her, what motivates her. Why did she, first of all, kill this guy? And, why was she with him? She was obviously also in a relationship with Roxy at the time. And then why is she so interested in Michael Douglas? Right? So it's like, what's drawing her in? And then, or what's drawing him into this? And I guess eventually we learn that basically she likes to act out the plots of her books, right? Mm-hmm. She likes to just like do, engineer these plots, do whatever she's going to then write in the book, and then move on. So she's sort of fascinated. It turns out, I guess, she's sort of fascinated with Michael Douglas just because she sees him as source material for a character. And that's what she says early on. And it's still, you're like, that can't be right.
I know. When you say like what motivates her, she says what motivates her the entire movie through. I mean, when you say why was she with the rock star? I mean, one, yes, she said to research a book, but also because he gave her pleasure. And like, there's just something so like face value about that we're not used to hearing, that we're like, well, there has to be like more going on with Catherine Trammell. That can't really be her only motivation, but perhaps it is.
Yeah. The twist is she's just telling the truth the whole time. That's the twist. Except for the part where she said she didn't kill Johnny, because she did kill Johnny. Well, yeah, she wasn't going to go to, she's like, I'm not going to admit to going to, to go to jail for this. Yeah. But yeah, she's otherwise mostly honest. Actually, that brings me to another, just as one plot point that I'm a little bit confused about is, like, what is the status of her relationship to Roxy? And this, one thing we disagreed about, I think, coming out of the film was, are the tears that she sheds for Roxy after Roxy, who was her girlfriend at the time, tries to kill Michael Douglas and ends up killing herself, are the tears that Catherine Trammell is shedding for Roxy genuine? Or are they just another manipulation to draw in his character? So what do you I'm curious what you think, Matt. Yeah, I think it's definitely a manipulation tactic, and it's a smart one by her. And it's one of the scenes in the film where, again, Verhoeven and Jan de Bont, the cinematographer, who in his own right became a pretty great director, and the lighting in the scene where Douglas comes to console her, where she's seemingly putting on another front and kind of just crying profusely, and the lighting, I think, is something that sort of permeates the whole film, and no room is really clearly seen. We're seen through shadows, and
and we're peering through windows and we're seeing reflections. And in many ways, I think Roxy, she's just another character who Catherine is fascinated by, based on this sort of racy, dangerous, serial killer-esque history, right? And I think she sees that in Nick, frankly. I think she sees that Nick is also kind of a loose cannon with a checkered past. He's someone who was suspended, I think, from the police force for shooting a tourist while being coked up and drunk. And Catherine warns Nick several times, like, you don't want to get into this. You don't know what you're in for. And yet, I think she does see in Nick what she sees in Roxy, what she sees in Hazel Dopkins, who's played by Dorothy Malone from The Big Sleep, speaking of which. And this sort of attraction to this serial killer or serial killers is an interesting twist, I think, to the film. And like you said, it's a surrogate family that she sort of created. How many films kind of deal with killers who are obsessed or kind of befriend in a book club way other killers, right?
Yeah. Well, that's why I kind of thought that there could be a case, and maybe you're making the case now, Matt, that the tears are genuine. That she, because I think the flip, the two sides are this. One is she had kind of moved on past Roxy. Roxy was just there as like a lay, and now she's moved on. She's into Nick. But the other flip side is that, she was kind of forming this surrogate family. She sort of had adopted Roxy, right? As Roxy was this person who killed at, I think, 16, her parents? Who's killing parents here?
Her siblings.
Her siblings. Okay.
You're so confused.
I'm sorry. I get them all mixed up. Anyway, she killed some people when she's 16. She doesn't really know. She's a wayward youth otherwise. Like nobody's gonna help her out. And she's brought into to Catherine's fold. And I think I could see the case to be made for that the tears are genuine, that, maybe she wasn't planning to be married to her or be in a monogamous relationship with her. I think that's clearly not the case. She was also banging Johnny Boz on the side. But it was that, she had a kind of sisterly relationship with her, and almost maybe even mentoring relationship. And so that's but I think what's so interesting about the film is that because we take the perspective of Nick's character plus a little bit more, we're not sure. Right? At that moment, we're not sure. And the film, I think, is genuinely open-ended with regards to whether those are genuine tears or not. And I think there's a lot of that throughout the film. So that's what I think is so interesting, is that even though we know basically what happened from the beginning, there's still all this ambiguity sown throughout the film that makes it still really intriguing and really compelling to watch.
We were down on the beach. She looked at me so strangely. She left right after you. I shouldn't have let her watch us.
I mean, here's another example of this. Okay, so we have Catherine Trammell, who's like the uber femme fatale. And then we have what's her name? God damn it. Dr. Beth Garner, Jean Tripplehorn, who's, how would we describe that character? She's the what in the noir? What is she?
She's Midge in Vertigo.
She's Midge. She's the one who's trying to save the man from falling into the hornet's nest or the Black Widow's trap or whatever. And we learn that they've had some relationship at Berkeley in the past.
Yes,
right.
Beth and Catherine.
Yeah, exactly.
Back when when Beth was Lisa.
Yeah.
You can be forgiven for getting confused about these
How
names.
many fucking names are there in this movie? Jesus. Okay. So whatever. It's Beth. I'm going to just call them by their actor names because I can't keep track of all the names. Okay. So it's Jean and Sharon. They had a relationship back in Berkeley, but they both say different things about their relationship. So Sharon says, oh yeah, Jean was just following me around. We slept together and then she was just following me around. She was obsessed with me. She styled her hair my way. And Jean says the exact opposite, right? So, but this whole time you're primed to be like, the person lying is Catherine, that is Sharon Stone. Because she's fucking lying all the time. She's lied about the murder and all that. But,
she's also such an alpha. You just cannot see her wandering around like following another woman.
Well, there you go. There's another sense in which it's much more. Her story is much more believable than Beth Garner's story.
Yes,
and you see that Beth she's got blonde hair in the earlier photo, and now she's a brunette. So it's like the case could be made that, she was the one following around Catherine. So the film just is littered with these little ambiguities and these little things that make you confused. And I think it's just really wonderful. I don't know. I really wanted to think, Catherine is just a bad person. And Beth Garner's like the good lady, like just be with Beth. But then you're like, it's complicated. There's shades of this deception in both characters. Yeah.
Everybody's lying a little bit.
Yeah.
And everybody's lying a little bit to themselves and also lying a little bit to other people. Tobolowsky, is that the last name?
Yeah, Stephen Tobolowsky.
Stephen Tobolowsky. Sorry, I was just thinking of Sandy Jenkins. He like gives this description of like a deranged psychopath. Really, he's like, this is the kind of person you're dealing with. The kind of person who could premeditate a murder 3 years in advance to write a book and then publish it and then do the things. Like, he's like, this person is like, brilliant and insane.
Kaiser Soze, man.
Yeah. But when you meet Catherine, like, she's not exactly what you would have imagined based on that description. She's more human. She's definitely manipulative, intelligent, and, maybe in her own way insane, but she doesn't feel unhinged, right? And then, so she says she wants to do a lie detector test. She passes it. And the technician for the lie detector test was basically like, either she's telling the truth or I've never seen anything like her. As if like there's no gradation between like being like a full psychopath who can lie and not, and not bat an eyelash, and somebody who can be pretty, talented at lying either to themselves or to other people, which we find out later, it's intimated that Michael Douglas's character passed the lie detector test as well, that he had to take after he had the situation where he shot the tourists, and he was asked if he was on drugs, and he said no, but Sharon Stone says, yes, you were on, like, I know you were on drugs. So he's able to pass a lie detector test. We don't think he's a psychopath. But everybody has this capacity, right? To sort of a survival capacity to, to lie to yourself or to lie to other people, in order to like keep your own sanity or to keep your own job, to keep your foothold, really. But everybody is in like some amount of deception in this movie.
That's right. And this is true. We put our best foot forward always when we engage with people, because we have our, front stage and our off stage personas, and we're constantly navigating those waters. But the thing with Catherine is that, and maybe even Nick to a certain extent, is they are portrayed as people who are particularly slick and good at this and have real darkness, I think, inside of them that they are covering up, on the surface. Catherine has just straight up murdered people with ice picks. Let's not sugarcoat this. That's bad, right? And
you're
Nick
anti-murder.
And Nick has shot. Now I don't know the circumstances in which he shot the people. That's unclear. So it could very well be.
She said something like 5 people in 4 years. It was more than just the tourists.
That's a lot.
Yeah, he's deep undercover, but still, like that's a lot of life lost right there.
And can we talk about buying ice in bulk in the 90s? Was that just a thing? Did people not have ice cube trays?
Yeah.
What was going on back then?
It's a great question.
I've never seen or touched an ice pick in my whole life.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it seems like everyone in this movie owns multiple ice picks.
Yeah, they're like, you just pick that up at Kmart. What? Again, never seen one in my life. If I go to Target now, I'm not going to get an ice pick. I'm almost positive it's a special order.
Well, you know what happened? It was because of this
Basic
movie.
Instinct.
Yeah, they banned them. You couldn't buy. Now you have to have like a permit, and you have to do a background check. Yeah. This movie really made it difficult to get.
Made it hard to buy ice in bulk. Yeah.
The people who manufacture the ice cube trays, their stock just went totally up.
Yeah.
They were like,
did they have?
They promoted this movie. Actually.
Did they have the refrigerators that made ice cubes at the time?
It's a great question, though, Matt. I don't know. But have you ever used an ice pick?
No, I don't think so. That was probably Basic Instinct was probably the first time I even saw one. But I wanted to touch on the dynamic between Beth and Catherine that you were getting at.
Yeah,
I think it's genius that neither of them appears in the same scene throughout the whole movie.
Oh.
Right? We're seeing these sort of, to use the Vertigo, we're seeing Kim Novak pre and post what Scotty thinks is her death, right? And and those are the two characters here. We have Jean Tripplehorn as Beth and Catherine, and they're playing this cat and mouse game with Nick, with themselves, with the film, with the viewer. And it's a really smart choice to not show them in the same scene. I think another movie, the typical Hollywood movie, I think does do that. And it maybe lends itself to a little bit more or less mystery and less intrigue because of that. And I just love Roxy's entrance in this film. When Nick and Gus arrive at her house, I think it's somewhere in downtown San Fran, they make a remark regarding the Picasso, and Roxy's sort of descending down the spiral staircase, which is very Hollywood. This sort of glamorous, beautiful-looking woman descending the stairs, kind of entering or introducing, I think, the audience to the film. And it's a really smart choice. And Roxy is a character, I think, throughout the film. The nightclub scene. We can have a whole podcast on Michael Douglas's deep V-neck sweaters and choices.
Yeah, the deep V's are strong. Well, on Roxy, she looked from afar. I was like, "Oh, that's Sharon Stone coming down the."
Yeah,
right? She looks exactly like her from afar. I mean, when you see her up close, you realize it's different people. But there were, and I think at the nightclub too, when you see her, dancing. I initially was like, okay, so there's Catherine. Oh wait, no, that's Roxy. Like, there's this strange kind of effect that's induced by just the softness of the film and being a little bit far away. You can't tell, and they're styled almost identically. So. And again, it sets it up like you've seen the murder of Johnny Boz happen, but the face is obscured. You're like, maybe it could be Roxy, it's like, or it could be a woman wearing a wig. Like it's not obvious, but I mean, it's also obvious. It's obvious. It is also obvious, but there's at least this injection of this kind of, you're not able to identify these characters. You're not able to, understand their relations to one another. And I hadn't realized that Jean Tripplehorn and Sharon Stone don't share any scenes. That's fascinating. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, and I guess they do share that picture, right? That Catherine plants, neatly plants.
Oh yeah, her super casual drawer. She has all the evidence.
Right. Where they're,
case closed.
Right. It's over.
I love how quick the cops are just like, yep, there it is. That's it. All right, let's go home. We found the paperbacks.
I mean, we're in a movie that is not in reality in many respects. I mean, obviously there's no DNA evidence, and that's fine. I don't care. I don't mind that this movie is in some sort of augmented reality. I mean, I in a way, actually, I think it's kind of cool because it feels like it's a movie that takes place in the universe of noir movies, right? It feels like it's basically a movie taking place in Hitchcock's Vertigo, aged up, 30 years.
Yeah.
Or, in whatever. Where's the Big Sleep set? I don't even know. But it's like in the same universe as these movies. And so it kind of just plays by the rules that were set up in that genre. And it doesn't really matter that technology is advanced to the point where it has kind of made that genre, a large parts of at least that genre, irrelevant. Because we don't care, because we're sort of, we recognize that we're in this sort of strange space that's constituted by the filmic, tropes more than it is reality. And I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I love it. I was reading Ebert's review and he didn't like this movie very much. And one of the things that he complained about was that it doesn't play fair with the audience, that there's every clue could be read both ways.
Interesting, yeah.
Which I think is such a strength of the movie. But I think he felt like, I think he wanted to solve the mystery. You want to feel smart at the end of the movie and feel like I know every beat what happened. And I think when you read a mystery novel, and which this is why I'm better at this than you are, Justin, and following these plots and twists and turns, is because I read a lot of mystery novels. It all gets it all gets resolved in the end. There's some sort of speech where they all clarify, okay, this is exactly what happened to Beth's husband. And this is exactly what happened in Berkeley. And, that's not really what the film medium is as strong in. You know, like it's the ambiguity, I think, is what makes this movie really wonderful and exciting. And the fact that it can be both read both ways, which Ebert thought was perhaps like a marketing ploy or something. Like if you want it to be one way, it can be that way. If you want it to be another way, it can be that way too. Everybody gets their cake and gets to eat it too.
Yeah.
But I don't feel it's that way at all. At least that's not how I
I don't think so.
Responded to
again, besides the primary mystery, which is completely resolved, it's just all these other related things that are unresolved, including, and just to skip to the end, because we're jumping around, it doesn't really matter, but the relationship between Catherine and Nick, which ends with her being ambivalent about whether she's going to kill him right then, right? Like she's got the ice pick.
Ready to go.
She's ready to go, well, I'll just not kill him right now. But like she's
just
ready.
Not tonight.
Yeah, maybe not immediately after she's pinned the blame on ice pick murders on Beth Garner, which is a smart move, to be fair. You know, if Nick's body had washed up with a bunch of ice pick holes in it, they might have been revising who they thought killed his partner.
Yeah, and you know that there's a scene early on in the movie too, right? The first time Catherine and Nick have sex, where we're again seeing the same image we saw in the beginning of the film, with the ceiling mirror looking down on the two lovers. The Sharon Stone's body is shot the same exact way as it is in the opening scene of Johnny Boz, and you get the impression for a split second that she's about to kill him right there and then. And again, she changes her mind last minute. You know, perhaps the ice pick was hiding underneath the bedsheet cover in that moment. But you know, partly what you were talking about with this sort of ambiguity and the fact that Ebert wasn't a fan of that, I think this is all part of the Verhoeven cycle of a film, where, you know, a Verhoeven film gets released and it hasn't even been released in theaters yet, and there's already protests and uproar and animosity towards the script. It happened with this film. It happened with Benedetta recently. With this film, I think the gay and lesbian community really disliked how, you know, the bisexual characters in the film were psychopaths or shown to be kind of these serial killers. In the DVD commentary, Verhoeven actually got a letter from two lesbian girls, as they described themselves, who loved Catherine Trammell, and they said they loved the fact that she was rich, smart, and she knew how to drive a car. Which is I think a key point. I think yes, Catherine Trammell perhaps is a sociopath or a psychopath, but she is also very successful. She's also very wealthy, and she's got multiple rabbits by the tail in this film, and the biggest one of all being Nick Curran. And I think this all goes back to the interrogation scene, which some may say made Sharon Stone's career and kind of also embroiled her in the controversy that I'm sure we're going to get to in a second. But the way she, I think, handles the men in that scene, first of all, the way she exits her own house, she's leading Gus and Nick out the door. It's not the other way around. So the power games begin right there and then, and they continue. And it's a film of mirrors and foreshadowing. The mirrors, I think, are both literal, where we see the overhand ceiling during the sex scene. We see Nick looking at Sharon Stone when she's naked and dressing herself up for the first time, and we know that Sharon Stone knows, that Nick knows, that there's the games begin there. And it's also a film of foreshadowing. Things get spoiled to us early on, and then they end up happening later, which is really neat, and is, I think, Verhoeven looking back at sort of noir films of the 60s and 50s. It also, Nicholas Roeg did a movie called Don't Look Now, a horror movie that, and also kind of seeps its way, I think, into this film. That sort of clairvoyant dread, that feeling, is something to watch for.
Daphne du Maurier is kind of like the connection there. Don't Know Luck Now is a Daphne du Maurier short story, and Alfred Hitchcock did a couple of adaptations of her, of The Birds and Rebecca. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's definitely like some shared DNA there.
That makes sense. Before we get to the interrogation scene, let's talk a little bit about this backlash, because I think the film both is regressive and progressive in its portrayal of women, and it's I think it's complicated. I think I think the criticism that the film, because Trammell is bisexual and also a psychopath, therefore the film's portrayal of bisexual people is sort of unfair or regressive, is not very compelling to me because, I think in fact, actually, her bisexuality is sort of portrayed as something just like an urbane character trait. It's not really like she's some weirdo bisexual person. She's just like a liberated woman.
Just a sexual person.
Yeah, she's like a sexual person who she's liberated of social mores, basically. And so she can just pursue people that she's attracted to, regardless of the judgment. So I don't find that particular. Sorry, go ahead.
I think the only reason I would find the argument compelling is like more about Beth's character than it is for Catherine Trammell, because I think the revelation that she's had a relationship with Catherine, and then the revelation that perhaps she continued to have relationships with women, and that is like a motivation for her killing her husband, if that in fact were the case, is like, then it starts to become like, okay, so now we have 3 women characters in this movie, all of whom are gay or bisexual in some way, and all of whom are psychopaths. But then the last thing he says, I think, before he shoots her is, "Do you still like women?" So I think that would be the part where you might feel like they're making a parallel there. I agree with you. I think Catherine is a multifaceted, interesting person who is just very sexual, and I don't think her like killing inclination has anything to do with her sexuality.
Is it clear though that that Beth has had like relationships with women after Catherine?
It was a rumor. It was a rumor around the time that her husband died.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
There's a lot of, I didn't even catch. Okay.
Yes. There had been a question at the time of whether or not she should be a suspect when her husband died, and because there was a rumor she had a girlfriend.
Nice.
That she was having an affair. But then the issue was dropped, so it could have just been a rumor.
All right.
She could have not been a rumor, and it has nothing to do with whether or not she's a killer.
Yeah, but also the fact, you're right. I mean, I take your point that the 3 women characters who okay, fair enough. That's rough.
I think okay, but I think if you're focusing on Catherine, I would find that less a compelling argument.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the people who were protesting the making of this movie knew about it beyond, right, that it was just that the main character was bisexual.
Yes.
Right. So I mean, if that's what they were concerned about, I don't think that concern is very founded. But yeah, you're right that there are other parts of it. I mean, I was going to say the other part that I do think is somewhat regressive about her character, but this has nothing to do with LGBTQ stuff. But it's just that she is portrayed as an incredibly powerful female character, but her power lies entirely in her ability to manipulate men through their sexual gaze of her. And so it's like it's as if like, well, you can get power as a woman, but only if you are still playing within the standard male gaze format. Like she's not really transcending that. She's just playing that game in a
way better than they can ever play
better
it.
than they're playing it, basically. She's sort of weaponizing their own gaze against them, so to speak. And so that continues to sort of reinforce the game. It doesn't suggest that there are other ways to be a powerful woman. It just says sort of, if you could be powerful if you have control of your sexuality in front of men. So I think that is regressive. I mean, in a way.
And Sharon Stone I have not read her full memoir, but I've read, there was a nice excerpt of it in Vanity Fair that will talk about this, about the interrogation scene too. But she talks about the fact that she, had aspirations to be in film and more than just an actress. She was interested in craft and storytelling. And she said she learned at the feet of these amazing directors, but the only way she was able to do that was by being a sex object, by being a sexy woman.
Yeah.
And she's fully aware of like, that's how she, is able to like play. You can play this game in Hollywood only by being a sex object in some ways.
Yeah. That's the aspect of regressiveness that I think is still kind of present in this film. But
and I think it set up Sharon Stone's career in an interesting way, where I think she took on roles that I'm not sure if they're available nowadays, in terms of those kind of filmmakers working and getting studio money. And I'm thinking of like the Quick and the Dead, the Sam Raimi Western. That was a neat role. And Casino with Marty Scorsese. I mean, she is phenomenal in that film. And was deserving of an Oscar win at the very least. But there is I think a regressiveness. And in terms of Sharon Stone, you can't help but be beautiful sometimes, like she is in the film, right? Right. I mean,
sure.
I mean, it's a hard life, and she gave an interview in the DVD commentary where she talked about that scene, and she admitted to the fact that it was the correct scene to show in that moment. It was the right move. To be fully naked in that scene. And yet it's something that she regretted later on. It was one of those, when you're in the moment, and especially being a leading actress of a big studio movie for the first time, there's a lot of pressures and there's a lot of unknowns, I think, for her at the time, right? Yeah. This was someone who was used to B and D movies, and she got on the map thanks to Verhoeven and Total Recall, where she kind of made a mark, albeit in a small role. But I think with Basic Instinct, it was a matter of sort of being confused and maybe taken advantage of in a sort of naive, youthful way in the moment. And the fact that I think she regretted it when she saw the film for the first time screened in front of her family and friends and other people in the movie theater. And she came over to Verhoeven and just slapped him on the face. And it was, I think, difficult for her. And, I don't think she realized the gravity of what that scene meant for her personally. But I also do think Verhoeven is respectable enough where he would maybe have a conversation about that in the moment to kind of explain that this is what I'm going to show. This is how it's going to be. But you kind of side with Sharon Stone as well, right? The autobiography talked about how every scene was full of hundreds of men. The set was full of men, the production assistants, the producers. We can name the few women on one hand, right? Hazel Dopkins and Triplehorn and Roxy. So I think it's a complicated situation. And I think people who say, including the DP, Jan de Baan in the director's commentary kind of says that moment kind of made her career. I kind of disagree with that because it's the performance, right? You take away that scene, and I think it's what people talked about a lot, I'm sure, at the time, and it's what got the box office numbers to the exorbitant highs that it reached. But it's the performance you take away. It's the actress, and
I mean, it really is complicated, I think, partly by the fact that they both have different stories about how the scene went.
Yeah. According to Sharon Stone, she was told by Verhoeven on set, I need you to remove your panties. The white is reflecting the light. So we know that you have your panties on. And she was assured that they would not show it.
Yeah, it would be camera. Like too blurry or something.
Yeah. And then she found out later, when it was shown to a bunch of producers. So according to her, she was assured that was that they were not going to have a up the dress shot in the movie, or that you wouldn't see it clearly. And she actually spoke with her lawyer after it, because according to her lawyer, it's not actually legal for the Screen Actors Guild for that kind of shot. And she did end up allowing it into the movie and feeling like it was the right artistic choice. But it is this real contrast between the way that Catherine Trammell was using her body in that scene and the way that Sharon Stone's body was used in that scene.
Yeah.
It's a conscious choice that Catherine Trammell is making that Sharon Stone did not realize that she was making, if we're to take her side of the, to take her point of view, which she says, hold on, let me, if I get that quote. She says, there may be many points of view on the topic, but since I'm the only one with a vagina in question, let me just say the other points of view are bullshit. That's from her memoir. So I'm inclined to take it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And she has at this point nothing to lose by telling the truth. Why would she? I think this is a fascinating window into the interaction between what is happening on the film, and within the film universe, and what is happening on set.
Mm-hmm.
And the two get complicated. I mean, the two are always intertwined because film is a depiction, right? It is a photographic, capturing of things that are happening in the world. Now, when there's CGI, of course, but normally it's just literally you stick a camera and you put some light on people and they do stuff. So you're simultaneously, anytime you're watching a film, watching an actor pantomime and pretend, and you're watching a character act out various things. And so in this article by Francie Russell, in Boston Review, which we'll link below, she notes that nudity on screen is often a point of where these two dimensions of the filmic experience collapse, where when you're watching Sharon Stone be Catherine Trammell and she's naked, you're also watching Sharon Stone be naked, right? So the character's naked, but also Sharon Stone is naked. And when you learn that Sharon Stone was, in a way, coerced into doing this, I don't know if I want to use that strong a language, but she was certainly pressured into doing this, and she was in basically exactly the scenario that Catherine Trammell was in, where she's sitting in this room facing a panel of men with a camera. That's the film itself calls attention to that, again, on purpose, I'm sure. Are all sweating and telling her to do stuff and asking her questions. It's very much like she's in an audition scene for a movie or she's performing for these men. I think it just really is a fraught thing that we're watching because, yes, Catherine Trammell is doing this willingly, the character, because she's doing this to intimidate the men and show that she has sort of... she can manipulate them and their sexual desires and make them uncomfortable and so on. But when we learn that Sharon Stone is not doing it maybe willingly, that makes, that again brings in the regressive element that she is basically ultimately just a body for Verhoeven to use in this painting he's constructing. And, you would hope that this is all done consensually, but in this case, the fact that there was complications, I think, makes it hard. It's a little bit harder to watch, knowing that. And I think the part of the thing that Francie Russell points out, I think, extends beyond this scene. It extends really into things where anytime you're watching bodies on screen, right, with the character and the actor become intertwined. And this did happen. She points out this did happen with Sharon Stone. Sharon Stone sort of became associated with the character Catherine Trammell. She kind of went on to play iterations of this character throughout her career. And what I think is so interesting about that is that apparently Sharon Stone was actually quite nervous and really struggled with some of her lines. Like she might not have actually been this character that much in real life. She was a young actress who was maybe quite unsure of herself, and she had to be acting next to Michael Douglas. So I think it's kind of interesting that this is created in a way because of her amazing performance and the script and everything, created a persona that is the one that she will be forever connected with. And that's something that film can do that's incredibly powerful. And I think that's something we've come to learn and recognize over the years as a real power to film. But I think in 1990 we knew about that stuff. But I just feel like with celebrity culture now, it's people are very much more savvy about this stuff. And when they're constructing their careers, choosing which roles they make, recognizing that those roles are going to stick to them, I think wasn't really as happening as much. It certainly wasn't happening, in 1977 when Harrison Ford's like, yeah, I'll be Han Solo. It's like, now you will be forever Han Solo, and Indiana Jones. And I think to some extent Harrison Ford regrets that because when he's like, oh yeah, I got to be Han Solo again, he doesn't seem very happy about it. But I think nowadays people sort of they've seen these actors become associated with their characters so strongly that they're aware of that, and so it's tricky because I don't even know Sharon Stone knew that at the time when she's agreeing to do this performance. She couldn't have known it was going to define her career, and yet it did. So it's tough.
Did you kill Mr. Boz, Miss Trammell?
I'd have to be pretty stupid to write a book about killing and then kill somebody the way I described it in my book. I'd be announcing myself as the killer. I'm not stupid.
We know you're not stupid, Miss Trammell.
Maybe that's what you're counting on to get you off the hook.
Writing the book gives you an alibi.
Yes, it does, doesn't it? But the answer's no.
Let's talk a little bit about Michael Douglas, maybe, because I feel like for all that Catherine Trammell is just the most sophisticated, intelligent, canny woman, Michael Douglas is like this horniest, stupidest,
so stupid,
most naive, fancies himself a good guy, but is probably a real douchebag dude in the history of noir. And so, yeah, I mean, this is a film. I mean, I was thinking a little bit about Michael Douglas's career and where this movie, where it kind of falls within him. I mean, he had already done. I mean, I think before this, what would it be like? Wall Street would be his biggest performance. I'm trying to think what else would be big for Michael Douglas. I mean, he had done movies. I mean, like Fatal Attraction.
Yes.
Right. And so
he's like deep in this genre.
Yeah, he's deep in the genre. But I feel like I like this turn for Michael Douglas more than I like the Wall Street thing.
Where he's like a real dumb and dumb.
Yeah,
but he thinks he's smart.
Yeah, I like that.
It's
I like
so funny.
I like the like he thinks he's smarter than he is turn for Michael Douglas.
The first time they have sex and he's just like strutting down the sidewalk, like to go meet Catherine at her beach house, and she's just like, it was fine. Like, calm down.
That's great. That's great.
Michael Douglas, I don't know that I see him, willingly play the butt of the joke that much. And he's really good at it. Do you think he thinks he's seducing Catherine Trammell? Like when he walks in with that deep V, like, is he like, I am going to go have sex with Catherine Trammell and I am going to get her all kinds of confused and then I will trap her?
Yeah, I think that's what he thinks.
With my
the character for sure thinks that. I don't know if Michael Douglas thinks that, but I think the character thinks that.
That's amazing. He's so stupid. I love it.
Well, I mean, think about it. That's how this shit like has gone in the genre. Like, I mean, maybe not in the genre of noir, but
I was going to say usually not. Usually it's the femme fatale. Usually ladies are doing the seducing and they know what's up.
But a lot of it is because it's reflecting back these ideas of like these men who are so, this trope of like the man who's so confident that the woman like swoons over him, right? And so there's that trope. Maybe it's not in the noir genre, but it's present in Hollywood filmmaking writ large. And that's what these guys are playing. And of course, Michael Douglas has just typically played that kind of character. Like it's a standard character for a leading man to play. And so it's not. I think it's natural for Nick to think that those kinds of things.
And I absolutely love his, first of all, I think the relationship between, obviously, Trammell and Curran is one thing, but the other is between Gus and Nick. I think those two couldn't be any more different. And they add such a colorful energy every time they appear on screen together. Gus is this sort of jovial, jokey guy, and Nick is the straight shooter. Literally, his name is Shooter. And, I like the line where Gus tells him, "You think the two of you will fuck like minks, raise rugrats, and live happily ever after?" He tells them that, I think, on the pier. And he's full of these sort of one-liners throughout the film. And the scene where Nick meets him at the cowboy bar feels like the most relaxed Nick has been the whole film. And you can sort of feel like a cloud descending on the ground. And Nick is there. I think he's chewing on a toothpick or something. And he's wearing a bomber jacket, and he puts on the cowboy hat. He takes the cowboy hat from Gus and puts it on himself. Yeah. And he almost looks like Kirk Douglas. He almost looks like he's in a Western for a second.
Yeah.
And I like that Verhoeven shot this movie kind of from an outsider's perspective. It feels like a very, it is a tropey homage to Hitchcock, obviously, but it's also very American, right? We have the cowboys, we have the boxer who Catherine was married to, who she killed. We have the Bart Simpson keychain that Beth uses to get in. We have the Kmart reference. We have Pepsi, Coke, Pizza Hut. It feels like a sort of tour through 1990s America and what's becoming big at the time. But yeah, that dynamic between Gus and Nick feels very lovable and loving too. And I think Gus even makes that point in one moment of the film where Nick kind of runs off and he's a suspected killer. And Gus makes the point, oh, he's a nice guy. He's got a good heart, right? Deep down, just from their kind of few scenes together, there's a history there, and there's kind of a mutual respect. And that, I mean, the fact that they're so different really kind of brings the entertainment value up.
Sure makes you wonder what they talked about when they set themselves down in front of the campfire at night. You ever met a friend of hers hasn't killed somebody? Must have beat your ordinary everyday girl talk.
I'm not sure anymore she did it.
Which one are we talking about now, Hoss? We know old Hazel did it. We know young Roxy did it. And the other one? Well, hell, she got that magna cum laude pussy on her that done fried up your brain.
There's a lot of strange stuff that seems completely unnecessary that's thrown into this movie. So like one of them is that in the background of Beth's apartment is always some people doing like exercise,
like jazzercise or something.
Yeah, like which again is something that would have been very like big at the time. I mean, this was like the time of who was it? Like, what's his name?
Afro guy.
Richard Simmons. Yeah, Richard Simmons. Yeah, this is like Richard. I was gonna say Russell Simmons, but no, sorry. This was the time of Richard Simmons. And whatever, Kathy Ireland. Who's the other one that did the like Buns of Steel?
Yeah, what's her last name? Kathy. I have done those Buns of Steel.
Yeah, Buns of Steel.
They're not easy. I don't remember her last name.
Yeah, but it's pre-Tybo.
Yeah,
but this was and so, but you've got this like these little quirky things that are clearly intentional but like they're very peripheral to the plot. There's no reason for this to be there, but it's almost like Verhoeven he's just sort of amused with the fact that he's making a movie set in contemporary San Francisco. And he's just like, yeah, let's just throw in all the goofy shit that I would think of when I think of America. Let's just put it all in there. And I think that adds to a certain retro charm of the film. I mean, especially when they go to the club and he's got the deep V and they're doing coke in the bathroom. That just feels like, and it's a very brightly lit club too.
Sure. Did that feel American to you or did that feel European to you?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it felt LA to me. It didn't feel San Francisco. I don't know. That felt like an LA club, actually.
I feel like some of the really Americana points of it too are at the very beginning where there's like a character whose only role is that he is like really nervous about any rich people getting any heat from the police. Because they could like be a mayoral, donor.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought something was going to come of that.
No.
I was like, oh, for sure.
I think that maybe that's just like
she's protecting him or whatever. He's protecting her because she's donating to the mayor's campaign. No,
like he's just like, I don't know if we should talk to this rich lady. Like, I think we should just leave rich people alone. Is how he seemed to feel about it. I think, yeah, maybe that's just Verhoeven being like, this system is broken.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it did make me want to get Pizza Hut, though.
Yeah.
When he's coming up the steps,
I
when Gus got the Pizza Hut box, and they talk about Pepsi in the it's not Coke.
The same thing as Coke.
It's not the same as Coke. That's a good joke. That's a good joke. I'm sure somebody in the 80s had made that joke. I mean, Ice Picks, Pepsi, Bart Simpson. Why would she have a Bart Simpson keychain?
That doesn't seem in line with her character at all, but it's awesome. It just has to be so distinctive, right?
Right, because
it can't just be like a normal keychain. Yeah. Otherwise, it's not going to have the same punch.
Yeah.
And
why Bart Simpson? It could have been like a bunny. Could have been anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Beth is full of surprises, right, as the film tells us. So...
That's true.
This is just another kind of wrench thrown in there.
She's a diehard Simpsons fan.
Yeah. Huge. And that was a big show at the moment too, right? That was kind of the peak of Simpsons mania.
Yeah. There is also that scene where Beth says, "Eat my shorts."
I know.
And I didn't understand it at first.
Then you saw the keychain and you were like, oh, that's right. She was like, cowabunga. And then she got on a skateboard and like ran off. Yeah, that was weird.
Can we quickly talk about Beth's hair? Just real fast.
Oh, we do need to do a hair corner. All right, so tell us what you think about Beth's hair.
So Justin, you know, because you've been cutting my hair for the past 2 years.
I'm Laura's hairstylist.
You're my pandemic hairstylist, and thank you. You know that we have to defrizz my hair on the regular. Like we bought special shears.
What does it look like if you don't defrizz it?
It looks like, you call it Christmas tree hair, because it grows out more than it grows down and long, and it just becomes increasingly spherical.
Yeah,
over time. Like Beth. Like Dr. Beth and her beautiful, fluffy blowout. They blew it out to make it fluffier in this movie.
It was huge.
It's enormous. And she's just flipping it around and like looking awesome. And I'm just like pissed that I don't live in 1992, because then I could just let my freak flag fly and I could just blow dry my hair and then just walk outside. Because as it is, I use lots of creams and lotions and things to try
to tame the mane.
And then we're like taking frizz out, you and me, like we're just like shaving my head in various places to like remove the extra hair. And like, I'm sorry for people who don't have thick hair and think this is a really obnoxious rant on my part. I get it. But her hair is magnificent and I wish I lived in 1992. That's all I wanted to say.
What about her hair versus Catherine Trammell's hair?
Catherine Trammell is just a low-key professional hairstylist for herself.
Yeah.
You know how she and Nick are constantly just showing up at each other's houses constantly and then just sitting in the dark until the other one enters? That's like all of their encounters, right? They never call each other like, let's meet up at a coffee shop. It's just that Nick walks into his apartment and she's in the corner.
Yeah.
And every time she is got like a new hairdo. Sometimes it's like the wet slicked back. Sometimes it's like that like amazing curl updo thing. Sometimes it's the Vertigo chignon. You know?
Can you describe the chignon? I don't even know what that is.
Okay, so the scene, she's got the chignon in the interrogation
Laura's doing,
scene.
Just so you know,
I'm doing like
she's doing a lot of hand movements around her head.
I was going to use my words. I have to do the hands first in order to get there.
Yeah, you're getting into the mood.
Thank you. I'm probably plosiving all over the place too as I'm getting more excited about hair. Sorry, Justin, for all the plosives you're going to have to take out. But so when she has her hair down when they come to get her for the interrogation, and she says, "Can I get into something more appropriate?" Because she's wearing like booty shorts.
She's like, "I need to take my underwear off.
I need to take my panties off." What's more appropriate is a mini dress with no panties.
Yeah.
And she just starts twisting her hair in the back, and when she comes back, it's like a roll in the back of her head where it got like tucked in, and it makes almost like a little cylinder in the back of her head. That's a chignon, I believe.
Okay.
Or a twist. It's an updo of it's like more old fashioned, and for sure it's in Vertigo.
Yeah, for sure.
And she's wearing all white in that scene, and she looks very much like Kim Novak in Vertigo in that scene. But listen, I've tried to do that. You need like 800 hairpins. And a lot of hairspray. You can't just like twist it up and just walk out. But at least not with my hair.
It's noir logic.
But like she looks spectacular in every scene. Her costumes are amazing, but her hair is also amazing, and she's got it like styled differently every single scene.
Yeah.
Whereas Beth always looks the same. It's always fluffy, but it's always great.
What about Michael Douglas's hair? I don't remember what his hair looked like.
He has hair. I don't remember his hair. I wasn't trying.
I know. I was trying to. Yeah. Do you have thoughts on Michael Douglas's hair?
Well, he's Slick Rick, and he's got the back flow going. It looks like he's always just run out of a shower, and the wind is blowing in his face. But yeah, I mean, between Fatal Attraction and Glenn Close's hair and Jean Triplehorn, Joe Esterhaus seems to write movies that bode well for that kind of 80s, 90s zeitgeist look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like let us just have our hair. You know what I'm saying? I'm just bitter because I like grew up in the early my high school experience with the early 2000s where you had to just like straighten it straight. You needed to have straight.
Yeah, it was like the Jennifer Love Hewitt look.
Yeah. All I wanted was my hair to be just to sit flat against my face.
Curtains on your head.
I'm just like burning it into submission every high school dance. And then you get warm and then it gets all frizzly by the end of the night.
Tough times.
Yeah, it's not that tough. But it's okay.
You were just 10 years too late, basically.
I know.
Yeah.
1992, I would have looked spectacular at prom in 1992.
No, I wanted to talk about the elephant in the room that we haven't touched on yet, which is Jerry Goldsmith's score.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
very good score.
It plays such a big part in every scene, kind of adding to the suspense, the drama, and Verhoeven talked about shooting the sex scenes even, right? Where it's not just sex to show sex, as we saw with a million other movies during that time. It was to kind of add this thrilling, suspenseful nature. Will she or won't she kill him? What will happen?
Yep.
Every move you could tell was storyboarded and sort of choreographed in a very sleek way. And Jerry Goldsmith's score throughout the film, I mean, he's doing the best Bernard Herrmann impression you can imagine. And it adds and it heightens each scene. It adds a certain energy that you maybe without it becomes maybe more damp and it becomes a lamer picture. But I just truly love listening to the music.
Absolutely amazing score. I mean, if we actually just watched Vertigo, rewatched Vertigo like 2 months ago, and so that score. I'm
so glad we did.
Yeah, and that score has been kind of reverberating in my head. And so when this movie kicks in and the score kicks in, I was like, holy shit, it's like announces itself as like Vertigo throwback score. And I mean, the setting as well, but yeah, great score. And it just has such an iconic first theme.
I have such a wonderful spot in my heart for the 90s erotic thriller, the legal thriller also. But I am very glad that this is not like a electronic score of any sort.
Well, there were moments actually where the score becomes more modern, actually. I think in the chase with Roxy, I believe, or around that point in the film, the score actually shifts a little bit and it becomes modern and it has this kind of like techno-y element to it. I mean, it's important for a film that's set in a noir film universe to have the score of a noir film, or else you kind of lose something.
You kind of want the score to emulate the doom and gloom impending on the characters, right? You want that sort of to be in sync, and I think it does that well. And did you know, by the way, that car chase scene with Roxy, Douglas was doing most of his stunts himself in that scene?
Yeah, that's amazing. I read that somewhere too, and I think that is just. Wow, that's wild.
Like when he's getting hit by a car, that part, or the driving?
Maybe both. I don't know.
Gosh.
Yeah.
That's great. I felt that when he gets hit by the car. It was it was harrowing. And the part where she's in a ravine and they're bringing the body up in this giant pulley system.
Yeah.
Just such a small detail, but like it felt, it really like hits home that he's in a really dire situation.
Yeah.
Everybody who surrounds Catherine Trammell is in a very dire situation.
Yes.
As she says, everybody I love, everybody I care about dies.
You're like, Catherine, you could help that.
I know. By your design, girlfriend.
Yeah. Right. This is a kind of weird left field question, but I'm curious where this film ranks for you guys for San Francisco movies, because there are not that many San Francisco movies, I'm just kind of curious. I don't have like a list of San Francisco movies before my mind, but I could just off the top of the head. I mean, there's Vertigo, but then there's also The Conversation, The Rock.
Isn't Dirty Harry a San
Dirty
Francisco?
Harry, yeah, The Rock. A lot of these movies have chase scenes, at least that I'm thinking about.
You have those hills just sort of
the hills
for
are
it,
great.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bullet's another one, right? It's got Steve McQueen. Same thing. I'm a big So I Married an Axe Murderer guy.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, kind of OG Mike Myers era. I think it's a hilarious film, and I just love rewatching it. It's probably the most 90s soundtrack of any movie, with the Spin Doctors and the Laws singing But yeah, it's a great watch. And I think David Fincher's The Game should be in that convo as well.
The Game. Well, and also Zodiac.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to see how the city has changed. And I mean, and even between 1992 San Francisco and 2020 San Francisco, so much has changed. The houses and some of the, like Johnny Boz's house, for instance, and Catherine Trammell's house, like these are like houses of people these are unattainably wealthy people's houses. It's just different now. And in 92, San Francisco was still, it didn't have the same cachet, I think, as it does today, partly because of Silicon Valley and all that. And so I think it was possible. I mean, sure, Catherine Trammell's also rich, but she's not like insanely rich. She's just like a normal rich person.
Gajillionaire.
Yeah, and she's got a freaking amazing house. I want that house.
Although her TV, I don't know, does she think she has only one subwoofer, or do you think she's got
Here's
two?
the thing. I'm never ever want to go back in time to have crappy home theater equipment. That for sure.
I noticed her TV was a little small, but she doesn't have time for television. She's got to stalk Nick Curran hard.
Yeah, she's writing a book on a dot matrix printer. She's just like, it's like, he's like, I want to know what happens. Hurry up. It's printing slowly, one line at a time. Good movie. I really enjoyed this movie a lot.
Was there so fun?
Was there anything else you wanted to get to, Matt?
Well, speaking of kind of like the San Francisco part, I like that Verhoeven wasn't intentionally kind of doing a Vertigo riff in many instances. Like there was a church outside Hazel Dopkins' house, and he didn't plan that when he was location scouting.
Oh, cool.
And so a lot of like the scenery, even Nick's apartment looks a lot like Scotty's apartment in Vertigo. A lot of these things were kind of in the unconscious for Verhoeven when he was creating it, which I find really neat. There was one scene where maybe the line of the movie or one of the lines where Douglas I think it's the first time or second time he has sex with Catherine. He goes into the bathroom and Roxy's there and he says, "Hey, Rocky."
Yeah.
He calls her Rocky.
Yeah.
I just caught that this time. And then he tells her, she was the fuck of the century. That line, I think that's sort of Verhoeven in a nutshell. I think he's sort of laughing at you and with you at the same time. We didn't talk about the Gene Triplehorn Beth kind of fluctuating levels of consent scene where
we could get into that. Wait, hold on. Before the Rocky thing I thought was actually kind of interesting because I thought that was him derogating her for being gay. So, right.
I think multiple times he jokes about
he
her
calls
being
her
a man.
Yeah. I'd have to admit, I did laugh at when he called her Rocky, but the way he says it is so, it's just funny. I mean, it's not like nice, but what he says, but it was funny. And it's just, he has such disdain for her. He's so like dismissive and disdainful of her. And I think part of that is that he's probably queer phobic, right? And that he's like intimidated by her and as a gay woman. And so anyway, but I thought that was like a really nice revealing of his character. Because he's the point of view character, so we're gonna empathize with him, but he's also a fucking dick.
Let me ask you something, Rocky. Man to man. I think she's the fuck of the century. What do you think?
I think he also thinks, like, because he's a dude, that he's, like, he also thinks he's her fuck of the century. And so he's just like, you have now been replaced. Rocky
totally.
Roxy.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry. I'm going to take it from here.
Yeah. He's like, the man has shown up and who will give the woman pleasure. Like he just, that's how he thinks about
I know.
the world.
Never mind that she's been like living with Roxy and been with Roxy for years, but he's just like, no, I'm here now. I'm obviously going to be her new partner.
Yeah.
He's so silly.
It's great. I think that is one of the moments where the film is critiquing this character in a good way.
Absolutely.
And it's funny also for that reason, because he's so sure of himself and his, and how good of that sex was. He doesn't even realize that he was almost killed. Like he doesn't even realize, like he's just like, yeah, like I just fucked her brains out. And meanwhile, Roxy's just like, dude, you were like 5 seconds away from dying, and we know that. But he seems to be completely oblivious. And, or at least, maybe he has some sense of the danger, but he doesn't really, really think he's in danger.
He tells Gus he's not scared of her.
Yeah.
And I remember just saying out loud, like, you're so stupid. But I love his dumb machismo. The performance is so good.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's important that he's committed to being a dumb machismo guy. Like if there was any winking, it does not work, right? Because we have to be identifying with him as a lead character, but at the same time, in a way, laughing at him, and I think that is successful. But let's talk about the Beth and Nick sex scene, which apparently was cut back when this movie was initially released, and so we saw, I think, the unrated cut. So we saw the full sex scene, and it was, pretty uncomfortable. You've seen both versions, Matt? Or
yeah, I think so. I think the gay and lesbian community, that was one of their qualms, I think, was the representation of that scene, how it was shot. I do remember seeing both versions, and I watched the unrated one last night. It is interesting. I think there is, like Verhoeven says in interviews that I've read with him and the director's commentary, there is sort of like a fluctuation happening, and within the sex scene that kind of maybe mirrors the ambiguity that's happening in the movie too. Where, at one point she's yelling stop, and then the next, literally a second later, she's putting his fingers in her mouth and seemingly enjoying it. And meanwhile, there's a ballet class or some kind of dance class going on across the street again.
Yeah. Russell Simmons, Richard Simmons. Sorry.
Well, who knows? Russell might have made a cameo in that moment. But yeah, it's an intriguing scene because immediately afterwards, Beth is kind of like, you've never been like that before. She's lying there and kind of trying to make sense of the whole situation. And I think this kind of plays into what we just talked about with Nick's sort of toxic kind of banker bro, hyper masculine personality, and the kind of character he's portraying that maybe was capitalizing on a certain, I think, male persona during that time, and on the heels of Wall Street, on the heels of Gordon Gekko, the type of person he played there. And it is an interesting scene. It reminded me a lot of Maria Bello and Viggo Mortensen in History of Violence, the staircase scene that was kind of like her pushing Viggo away, but then kind of enjoying it too. And I kind of appreciate that a filmmaker was willing to show something that was kind of ambiguous, whereas usually it's either the extreme or it's fully consensual. So here it was uncomfortable and morally highly morally questionable, but it adds a conversation, which I think Verhoeven is good at doing. He's good at stirring the pot in these ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, the way I read it is that he is doubly sexually charged because of his interactions with Catherine Trammell. So it's like there's this element of like Trammell had kind of, in a way, dangled herself in front of him. He couldn't have her. And so he is taking out his frustration on Beth or something like that. Like she becomes a stand-in for the woman that he can't have.
Right. And she also, he was sexually charged because, she's she's allowing him to see her naked, and she's, saying suggestive things to him. Catherine Trammell was, in the previous scenes, but she's also kind of like humiliating him in those interrogation scenes. She's constantly asking him if he wants a cigarette. She's, making these pointed comments at him. She has made it clear again and again she is in control of him and she has the power, and doing it in a way where his colleagues are looking at him like, what is going on? Does she know you? What's happening? And he, I think has been emasculated. And then he takes that feeling of being out of control, and then when he has an opportunity with Beth, he is asserting his masculinity, asserting his control over the situation through his sexuality, which was the flip of what he was experiencing previously. The movie is just all about, about trying to wrestle power from the other person and not knowing where you really stand.
Yeah. That's why I feel bad for Beth. I feel like she's just this pawn between Catherine and Nick in a way. And like I don't know. I read her character as like she wants the best for Nick. I don't know. And she's just not gonna, she is the midge of the situation. Like she's gonna get shunted aside and not ultimately she's gonna die. And I feel like it's weird. Like we think of sometimes the tragic hero character as, as like the one who used to sacrifice themselves and all that. And usually that's portrayed heroically, and usually it's a man. Here, she's sort of a sacrificial lamb in a way. But for what? For nothing, really. It's just so if Catherine can get off, and then Catherine and Nick can be together, and Nick's gonna die. Like it really is bleak in a way. Like all the whatever elements that are good in this movie are kind of all end up dead.
Gus too.
Yeah, exactly. Like I feel like, but then again, you get to get another sex scene with Nick and Catherine, which is great.
Team Beth / Lisa.
Yes, /Letha. Okay, how about this? Favorite character, and you got to make your pitch for the character. So you got to put them up on the witness stand and make sure they do their best. Sorry, Matt's a lawyer. I don't know. I was making a lawyer joke. Okay, so I'll try that again.
You're not John Grisham. I'm sorry.
Okay, here you go. All right, so now we're going to do this part of the podcast where we make our case for the favorite character of the movie, and it has to be done in total seriousness. So we're going to start with Matt, if you don't mind going first.
I think it's Gus. I think Gus is my favorite character. I think he's the one we could sympathize with the most, and we feel sorry about when he dies. And he's got like 3 or 4 of the best lines of the 90s. I mean, the magna cum laude pussy.
Oh man, does he say that when he's wearing his cowboy hat? Is that when that line happens? Oh my god.
Yeah, I think when then they go to the diner, right? They go in the diner, and he's just being a total mess and kind of spiraling his tongue.
He's eating his chili.
He's eating his chili. He's getting stares from neighboring tables. He's just a total hog in that scene.
Although, can I say one thing about that scene? We're imagining it's like really late. Right? He's just been out drinking, and it's like the middle of the night. Like what diner is like hopping at, 1 a.m? I guess it's San Francisco. Who knows?
Yeah. I don't know. If it's an all night diner, there's not that many of them.
I mean, what was that place? What was the pizza place? York Street Pizza would be fucking chaotic at 2 a.m.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's true. That place was nuts at 2. Like it would be a disgusting hellhole. This was a pizza place in New Haven, right next to the dirtiest, raunchiest club in New Haven called Toads.
Calm down.
It was called Toads.
It was called Toads. It had an illustrious history. But yes, Yorkside Pizza made all of its money off of all of the drunk people who wandered out from Toads to have some pizza and sober up a little bit.
I take it back.
Yeah, take it back. Right. I mean, were there children in the scene? I don't think so. I think it was just... That might have been a little weird. But
yeah, especially with the things Gus was saying. Laura, who's your favorite character?
I mean, it's Catherine. I love Catherine.
She's a psychopathic murderer.
Yeah. But she's cool. She's like a successful novelist lady who doesn't need anybody else. I think it's awesome. I also think that that Sharon Stone's performance is really good because she has to play so many levels. That scene that we talked about where she's crying about Roxy, she's saying lines that feel silly, right? Where she says, I don't mean feel silly in the script, but I mean when she says, everybody I care about dies. At the audience level, we're sort of like supposed to be like eye roll. At Michael Douglas's, at Nick's level, he's like empathizing with her. Her performance has to be like, she has to deliver that
both ways.
Right, in a way that it feels a little like off kilter, but like not like she's way overacting, but also not making you think, oh, Sharon Stone's not pulling this off. You know, Sharon Stone knows exactly where she's playing her levels. I think it's a really nuanced, amazing performance. And yeah, like I would spend more time with Catherine. I would do all the Catherine sequels where she's just ice picking people and writing books. I think it's whatever. We watch fucking Dexter. Why can't we have a Catherine Trammell TV show?
I'm on board. You've sold me. My favorite character is Beth.
You love Beth?
I love Beth. So we've got a Gus fan, a Beth fan, the two decent people in this movie, and I'm repping Beth. I think Beth is...
she tries so hard to save him.
She's trying to save him. There's so much mystery to Beth, you know? Like, we don't know what happened to her husband.
Mm-mm.
We don't know what happened with her and Catherine.
Mm-mm.
And
I'm pretty sure Catherine didn't follow her around, though.
Look, we don't know.
Pretty sure.
And we don't know why she's lying about that stuff. Like, what is she... I don't know. She's a mystery, even though she's also, like, in a way, the straight character. So I think that's actually kind of interesting. I'm very compelled by her, and I like the hair. I'm into the Christmas tree hair. I like.
Well, that checks out. You did marry a Christmas tree haired lady.
There we go. Parting thoughts, Matt?
I want to shout out a couple books that really sort of swayed my opinion one way or another, or gave me a lot of sort of love and affection for this film. Paul Verhoven Interviews, which is a series of books they do with a lot of directors, and it's edited by Margaret Barton-Fumo, who herself interviewed Verhoven several times, and she's written about his work before. And Adam Naiman wrote a terrific piece reviewing Benedetta in N+1 recently, and he touched on a really cool thing that is very true for Verhoeven as a director, is that he doesn't really have a distinct style, a directing style, like a Scorsese or a PTA, where, you know, you're going to get a lot of long takes, you're going to get a lot of zoom pans, and but he is really efficient, and he's really good at composition, and he's also good at casting and thematics, and he sort of understands, I think, what an audience wants to see on screen. And he's good at sort of putting all those pieces together. And he's made a career out of it, or a really impressive career out of being both controversial, but also entertaining. And that, that sort of combination at being a very diligent and kind of creative director, it has been really exciting to follow. And I think he's still kind of doing it to this day. And I love him for that.
Yeah, we love Benedetta in this house. What a great movie.
We watched Black Book right before that.
Yeah, we were getting in the zone.
Speaking of insane amount of twists, that you were real confused, Justin.
I didn't know who was with who and what was going on. I was just like, I'm into it. It's just cute. I mean, it was great. And I used Black Book weirdly to calibrate my home theater system. That makes no sense, but it is true, because I learned that there are differences, subtle differences between the Amazon Fire Stick, the Apple TV, and the NVIDIA Shield Pro. And because I was using a scene from Black Book to test, and you can see in that where the interpolation happens in the different softwares of the things when they're interpolating the streaming. And there was some sequences where it's like a long shot, and there's some, action where she's on the beach or whatever. It's very far away, so it's very pixely. You can't totally see. And one of them, I won't say which, I'll say which one. It was the Amazon Fire Stick, was doing this really weird frame interpolation thing that got the pixels would like appear and disappear. It was really strange. And so from then on, I decided I'll never watch anything on an Amazon Fire Stick.
And this is why we are not sponsored by Amazon. Yeah. When you say you can see, like it's like a general you, it's just like people with your eyeballs.
No, but I watched the scene. I watched the scene probably like 50 times.
Yeah.
Because I was flipping back and forth between the different.
Crazy people can see
I'm just saying, like, you might not be able to see it consciously, but it will register to you unconsciously because you'll think, something just doesn't look clear.
And 20 years later, it will be
Thank you so much, Matt, for being here and bringing the Verhoeven knowledge. Matt, so where can people find you on social media if they want to follow you and read your writing on film?
Yeah, at jagerwatch.com. Jager was a hockey player for the Penguins. JAGR. That's my Twitter handle, and you could search my name, Matt Belenky, and some neotext and some other articles will probably show up, and also the Third Take website. So yeah, there's
awesome. So that's awesome. I did not know that your Twitter handle was because of Jaromir Jagr. So were you? So Jagr was on the Penguins. Are you a Pittsburgh guy?
Yeah, diehard Penguins fan. That was
all right.
Father-son bonding time right there.
There you go. What about Lemieux?
Yeah, I mean, you can't hate the guy.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for being here, Matt. That was super fun. The podcast, which you didn't plug, but I'm going to plug for you, is the Movie Talk Podcast. So check it out. It's on Spotify. And we are at CowsPod on Twitter, and you can find us on the web at cowspod.wordpress.com. Next week, it is going to be the first annual Blob Scars. This is our Oscar party session, and we're going to talk through our favorite movies of 2021, and we'll talk about which movies we think will win at the Oscars and which movies we think should win. And the way the Blobskers work, it has some sort of strange rules that we've invented over the years, so we'll go over that with everyone, and then that will be the next episode, and that's where we are. So that's in 2 weeks.
Prepare for me to be talking about House of Gucci.
Well, you can only put one House of Gucci winner. Remember, only one movie can win. Sorry, once in your in your.
I'm looking at you like Catherine Trammell. Like, are you going to arrest me for smoking?
That's how the Blobskers work.
I'm like, just stop. Just try to stop me.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys then. Thanks.